A masculine man never chases. He values himself too deeply. Chasing signals weakness, while disappearing shows strength. Silence and absence speak louder than pleading. True power lies in detachment, not desperation. When he walks away, respect follows. Masculine men don't beg for love. They embody it and attract effortlessly. True masculinity begins with a deep-rooted respect for oneself. A man who embodies masculinity understands that his worth is not tied to how others perceive him, nor is it dependent on how much approval he can gain from the outside world. He knows that his identity cannot be built on chasing love, begging for attention, or trying to prove himself to someone who does not see his value. Instead, he carries himself with quiet confidence, grounded in the knowledge that his time, energy, and presence are valuable. When a man respects himself first, he automatically sets the tone for how others will treat him. People take their cues from the way he treats himself. If he constantly compromises, allows disrespect, and ignores his own needs, he silently communicates that his worth is negotiable. But when he draws boundaries, prioritizes his purpose, and refuses to lower his standards for anyone, he shows that his respect for himself comes before the approval of others. Self-respect is not arrogance. It's clarity. It's the awareness that you cannot force someone to love you. You cannot chase someone into seeing your value, and you cannot prove your worth through desperate actions. Respecting yourself first means having the courage to walk away when something no longer aligns with your dignity. It means understanding that silence and distance are often more powerful than words. A man who respects himself knows that disappearing is not about games or manipulation. It is about refusing to invest in places where his energy is not reciprocated. Women, friends, colleagues, everyone responds to this energy. When a man demonstrates respect for himself, others instinctively respect him. It creates a magnetic pull because people sense strength in someone who doesn't need validation to feel complete. Masculine energy is not about loud declarations. It is about the calm, unwavering assurance that says, I don't need to chase because I know who I am. Respecting yourself first also means prioritizing your mission, your growth, and your inner stability above temporary emotions. A man who gets lost in chasing someone else loses sight of himself, but a man who holds on to his sense of purpose remains grounded. Women are naturally drawn to this kind of presence, not because he begs for their attention, but because he doesn't. His respect for himself creates respect in others, and his absence becomes louder than any attempt to pursue. At its core, true masculinity is rooted in this discipline. It's the refusal to trade dignity for momentary validation. It's the ability to walk away, not out of pride, but out of self-worth. And when a man chooses respect over desperation, he rises above the need to chase, because he understands that what is truly meant for him will meet him where he stands. Chasing is one of the clearest signs of weakness because it exposes a man's inability to control his emotions. When a man chases, he is essentially saying, I need you to validate me in order for me to feel worthy. That desperate energy immediately strips away the aura of strength and security that women are instinctively drawn to. Masculinity is built on presence, composure, and purpose, not desperation. The moment a man starts running after someone, he communicates that he is not enough on his own and that the other person's attention or approval is the source of his identity. That is not attraction. That is insecurity wearing a mask. A man who chases loses his frame. Instead of standing in his power, he hands it over by allowing his emotions to dictate his actions. He reacts instead of leads. And the truth is, no woman respects a man who can be easily swayed by emotion to the point where he abandons his self-respect. She may entertain the attention for a while, but deep down she knows he has lost his strength. Respect is not built on pursuit, it is built on self-control. When a man chases, he also makes himself too available. What is given too easily is rarely valued. Human psychology responds to scarcity. What is rare is always more desirable than what is constantly in reach. A man who chases removes all mystery, all magnetism, and all strength from his presence. Instead of being seen as a man of value, he becomes predictable, needy, and replaceable. True masculine power is not about chasing, it is about creating space that makes others realize what they stand to lose if they don't value you. Weakness in chasing also lies in the lack of discipline it shows. A masculine man is disciplined enough to control his urges. He does not bombard someone with calls, texts, or constant requests for attention because he understands that his time and energy are precious. He invests them wisely and never in someone who does not reciprocate. Chasing is emotional impulsivity, while restraint is strength. The man who can remain calm and detached, even in moments of rejection, is the man who is truly powerful. A man's worth is not measured by how hard he can chase, but by how well he can walk away. Chasing tells the world he has nothing better to do, nothing greater to focus on, no mission that demands his attention. Disappearing, on the other hand, shows that he values himself too much to waste time proving his worth. Masculine men know that if someone cannot see their value, it is not their job to convince them. It is their job to move forward with dignity. Chasing is weakness because it reveals dependence, while detachment reveals strength. The man who doesn't chase stands firm in his identity, and that unshakable presence will always command more respect than desperation ever could. Disappearing creates respect because absence has a power that presence sometimes cannot deliver. When a man continues to show up where he is not valued, he becomes invisible. His presence becomes ordinary, taken for granted, and often dismissed. But when he chooses to disappear, he forces others to confront the reality of his value. Suddenly, the silence speaks louder than words, and the distance creates a gap that cannot be ignored. People begin to realize what they had when it's no longer readily available. Respect is born in that space of absence, not in the desperation of constant pursuit. A man who disappears is not running away out of fear. He is standing firm in his self-worth. He understands that remaining in a situation where he is disrespected or undervalued is a betrayal of himself. By walking away without drama, without pleading, and without explaining, he delivers a message that is impossible to misinterpret. I value myself enough not to stay where I am not honored. That kind of quiet strength commands respect because it shows emotional control, discipline, and the courage to detach. When a man disappears, he also shifts the dynamic. The person who once dismissed him now feels the weight of his absence. The energy that was once freely given is no longer there, and this creates a natural sense of loss. Human nature often fails to appreciate what is always available, but it learns to cherish what can suddenly be taken away. Disappearing interrupts the pattern of neglect and forces the other person to see him from a different perspective. His absence becomes a mirror that reflects his true worth. There is no power in chasing because it shows weakness, but disappearing communicates power without saying a word. It sets a boundary without needing to announce it. It shows maturity because it is not about revenge or manipulation. It is about self-respect, and that is exactly why it earns respect. A man who can walk away without losing his composure is a man who is in control of himself, and control is the essence of strength. Disappearing also preserves a man's dignity. Instead of lowering himself to arguments, begging, or proving his worth, he allows his actions to speak. Silence protects him from unnecessary conflict, while distance restores his focus back to himself. He does not waste energy trying to change someone's perception. He invests that energy into becoming stronger, wiser, and more centered. And the truth is, nothing commands respect more than a man who can move on with grace. Respect is not demanded, it is earned. And sometimes it is earned not by what you do, but by what you refuse to do. By disappearing, a man teaches others how to treat him. He teaches that he will not tolerate disrespect, that he is not afraid of solitude, and that his value does not diminish when it goes unnoticed. In fact, it only shines brighter when he chooses to step away. Disappearing is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of strength. And with strength, respect always follows. Attention is one of the most valuable currencies a man can give. Where he places his attention reflects his priorities, his energy, and ultimately his sense of self-worth. A man who demands attention, who constantly seeks validation and reassurance, is already showing that he does not respect the value of his own presence. Masculine men understand that their attention is a gift, not something to be begged for or handed out to those who do not appreciate it. That is why they never demand attention, they make others earn it. When a man demands attention, it exposes insecurity. It communicates that he needs someone else to make him feel significant. This not only weakens his image, but also diminishes his influence. The truth is, no one truly values what is forced upon them. Attention that is demanded loses its worth because it comes from a place of desperation, not strength. But when attention must be earned, it becomes precious. It carries weight because it is not given lightly. It requires respect, effort, and genuine appreciation to receive it. A masculine man does not scatter his focus everywhere. He is intentional. He gives his attention where it is reciprocated and where it aligns with his standards. This creates an aura of exclusivity around him. People recognize that gaining his focus means something. It is not about arrogance, but about knowing that not everyone deserves access to his energy. Just as he respects himself, he expects that others show the same respect before they are allowed a place in his world. That is how true respect and admiration are built. Attention that is earned creates balance in relationships. When someone knows that your attention cannot be bought with flattery or secured by manipulation, they begin to value it more. They understand that it comes with effort, with respect, and with genuine connection. This changes the dynamic entirely. Instead of him chasing or pleading to be noticed, others are drawn toward him, eager to do what it takes to gain and keep his presence. Demanding attention, on the other hand, only drives people away. It suffocates and creates pressure while making the man appear needy and dependent. Masculine men refuse to operate from that space. They do not waste their energy convincing someone to see their worth. Instead, they invest their attention in their mission, their growth, and in people who reciprocate with equal value. That detachment makes their presence magnetic because it shows they are not desperate to be seen. They are already whole without it. At the heart of it, earned attention is a reflection of respect. When people must earn your focus, they cherish it. They treat it with care, they honor it, and they recognize its rarity. Masculine men live by this principle. They know that makes his presence more impactful when he does choose to speak, because his words are no longer cheap or desperate. They are deliberate, rare, and meaningful. Silence amplifies his voice when he finally decides to use it. Most importantly, silence sends a message of self-respect. It shows that he does not need to explain his worth because his worth is self-evident. He doesn't have to argue for respect. He commands it simply by refusing to engage in anything beneath him. Silence is not passive. It is active strength. It is the ability to walk away from drama, from disrespect, and from anyone who fails to value him. In doing so, he allows his absence to speak louder than any argument ever could. The man who understands the power of silence never has to chase. He makes others come to him, drawn not by noise, but by the undeniable strength of his calm. A woman values what she might lose because human nature is wired to appreciate scarcity. What is always available is often taken for granted, but what can be lost instantly gains significance. When a man constantly chases, constantly shows up, no matter how he is treated, his presence becomes ordinary. She assumes he will always be there, no matter her behavior, and therefore she does not value him. But the moment he withdraws his attention, the moment he disappears from her daily life, she begins to feel the weight of that loss. Suddenly, his presence, which once felt guaranteed, becomes rare, and with rarity comes value. Women respect men who are not afraid to walk away. This isn't about manipulation, it's about truth. A man who is willing to disappear communicates that he values himself more than someone's inconsistent interest. He does not stay where he is disrespected. He does not continue to invest where there is no return. By stepping back, he forces her to recognize what she risks losing: his presence, his energy, his protection, his guidance, his masculine stability. These are not things easily replaced, and once absent, they create a void she cannot ignore. A woman will only value a man if she knows there is a possibility of losing him. This is not because she wants games, but because respect is rooted in boundaries. A man who cannot walk away sets no boundary, and therefore communicates that he will tolerate anything. But a man who can disappear shows that he has standards, and those standards demand respect. She understands that to keep him, she must value him, because his presence is not guaranteed. The dynamic shifts the moment a man removes himself. Instead of her being the prize he endlessly pursues, he becomes the prize she must now fight to keep. His absence changes the balance of power. She begins to remember the things he brought into her life, the stability, the attention, the sense of security, and she realizes that she may not find them again so easily. That realization sparks value. It is only when something is gone that its weight is truly felt. A man who stays despite being unappreciated will never be valued. A man who has the strength to walk away will always be remembered. Women may not admit it openly, but they feel it deeply. The respect for a man who is not afraid to leave is far greater than for one who clings desperately to stay. When a woman senses she might lose a man, her behavior changes. She listens more, she respects more, she appreciates more, because loss awakens value. Masculine men understand this instinctively. They don't chase because chasing lowers their worth. Instead, they stand firm in the knowledge that their presence is meaningful. They know that only in risking loss can they inspire true value. And that is why disappearing often commands more respect than staying ever could. Control comes from detachment because the man who is not emotionally enslaved by outcomes is the one who holds the true power. Most men lose control when they become overly attached to how a woman responds, attached to whether she stays or leaves, attached to the need for constant reassurance. This attachment breeds desperation, and desperation always leads to loss of respect. But when a man can detach, when he no longer allows his emotions to dictate his behavior, he stands unshaken. He no longer reacts impulsively. He chooses deliberately. That is real control. Detachment does not mean coldness or indifference. It means having the strength to value yourself above external validation. It means knowing that your happiness is not dependent on someone else's presence, but on your own alignment with who you are. A detached man can love deeply, but he does not beg. He can care, but he does not lose himself. He can give, but never at the cost of his dignity. Because his sense of worth is self-sustained, he does not crumble when others fail to provide him with attention. Control is found in restraint, and restraint comes only from detachment. The man who chases after someone who disrespects him is controlled by emotion. His actions are dictated by fear, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone. But the man who detaches moves from a place of strength. He can say no without hesitation. He can walk away without second guessing. He is not afraid of solitude because he knows solitude sharpens him. This kind of presence commands respect because it shows that he is not owned by anyone else's choices. Women sense the power of detachment instantly. A man who cannot detach, who clings tightly, loses his mystery and influence. But a man who remains calm and centered, even when faced with games, silence, or distance, creates intrigue. She realizes she cannot shake him, cannot control him, cannot pull him into her frame. That realization earns respect. Control, then, is not about overpowering others. It is about mastering yourself so completely that others cannot manipulate your emotions. Detachment also keeps a man focused on his mission. When he is not consumed by obsession or anxiety over someone else's behavior, he channels his energy into his growth, his purpose, his vision. That alone separates him from men who waste their lives chasing approval. Purposeful men are always in control because they do not give their power away. And paradoxically, this is what makes them more attractive, because people are drawn to the man who is unshaken by loss and steady in his direction. In the end, control is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. Detachment frees a man from fear and places him back in authority over his own life. He does not collapse under rejection, nor does he beg for validation. He understands that his strength comes from within, and that by mastering detachment, he will always remain in control. Walking away is often misinterpreted as giving up or showing weakness, but in reality, it is one of the strongest decisions a man can ever make. It takes far more courage to leave behind something that does not honor you than to stay and settle for less.